there's a little card here. If you're running into any tech issues, just get that number, call or text, and then we'll come help you.
Oh, thank you.
And mics and everything should be connected. There's another one at the back.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm giving up on that. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I was wondering if he had replied to some of those people privately, but that's not what you're. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. For the folks online, the audio is okay? Okay, excellent. So this is the Network Time Protocols Working Group. Dieter will be taking minutes. There is a notes page linked from the agenda, so people can feel free to add to that. If you want to add more detail, that's always helpful. The note well is what you agreed to abide by when you signed up for this meeting. All of the policies and procedures of the IETF are documented here. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask the chairs or the AD. And here a little bit of additional guidance for the note well. We do strive to have a cooperative environment that everybody can feel safe and participate in to the fullest of their abilities. So please behave professionally. I don't know that for the IETF 120 meeting tips, everybody should have gotten the QR code. Everybody should be in Meet Echo, either with the Light client or yourself. We will be using the queue, even though we're a very small group. We want to allow the remote participants as well. And with that, this is our draft agenda for the day. We did expect a very small contingent. We have some verbal updates from some of the individuals who are not able to attend this meeting. So we have some updates that we can provide as we're going through the various agenda items for them. Is there any agenda bashing? No? So the first thing is a quick status of the documents that have moved beyond the working group, and they're either with the chairs or with the IESG. The enterprise profile has gone through the IESG. We have some last call balloting comments on that document, and we need to tidy it up a tiny bit, and then it'll be ready to go to the RFC editor. You can see all of that if you go and look at the data tracker and the balloting from the IESG, but it's very close to being completed. The registries document, we also have, we need to do some resolution of IESG ballot comments. So going back to the enterprise profile, so that's with the authors and Eric and I. For the registries document, we also have some additional comments. We have some possible text that we're going to work on this week. And with that, the author is, we'll be moving that forward once we get some agreement on what that text needs to be. So that's another document that hopefully will be done in the next month or two. We have NTS for PTP here. I meant to delete it. We have adopted it by the working group, and we do have Martin online who's going to give us an update on the status of that document. And we have the NTP over PTP. If you were following that discussion on the mailing list, there was a fair amount of concern about the document. We had a joint, from the 1588 community, we had a joint discussion with the 1588 leadership on that, and they proposed a way forward, and Miroslav has implemented that. And so the latest draft in the repository reflects the agreements that we made with 1588. And so we are ready to send that to the IESG pending a Shepherd write-up. So NTS for PTP should have been taken off this because it's not a document that's beyond the working group like the other three are. Is it any question on the three documents that have moved beyond the working group? No. Okay. Oh, yes, we should talk about interleave mode.
Eric Klein. At long last, I read some of the changes for interleave mode. I think some of the objections from the operations people may still be there when we bring it back to telechat about why is this safe and so on. But it's coming back to the IETF telechat, I think August 22nd. So we'll bring it back around. It had been off for so long that the ISG had changed a bunch and needs a bunch more ballots. So we'll see what this round brings in terms of review. And maybe people won't be quite so skeptical, especially now that I think there are 3 implementations of interleave mode, Miroslav said.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, it's on the next telechat. Well, second telechat from now.
Okay, so the next draft that we have is the NTP v5 requirements draft. We do not have an update from the author since the last time we discussed this document. We have some additional changes that we would like to have made. We would also like to get some editorial support for the author. If there's anybody who's interested in helping work on this document, we would appreciate it. We had also talked at one point about whether we wanted to publish this or not, and the chairs and Eric, the 3 of us have discussed this, and we believe that we should go ahead and develop the document and then deal with the question of publishing it when we get to that stage, because we do still need some answers to some questions in order to help drive the NTP v5 protocol document. Is there any questions on the requirements document? All right, so the next one is the NTP v5 the NTP v5 specification. There has been an update to that document. Miroslav was not able to attend this meeting. The latest version of the draft specifies a replacement for the kiss of death deny and NTS NAC codes. It improves NTP v5 negotiation in older NTP versions, and it improves the specification of the correction field, the correction extension field. We have some remaining issues to be addressed, and that's whether or not to support the reference IDs of Stratum 1 servers that have codes and other GPS codes and other non-NTP time sources, and more testing on detection and the prevention of synchronization loops. If there's no real objections to the design, Miroslav believes that most of this is editorial work that we need to do to make the document easier to read, better introduction, explain things in more detail, and those kinds of things. So it's definitely not ready for a working group last call, but we really do need some additional reviews and comments on this document. We hope to have a hackathon project on this document in the November timeframe for the next IETF meeting. So with that, does anybody have any questions or comments on the NTP v5 document? Okay. Pardon? Yes. Yes, please.
Eric Lenigan. So with respect to the NTPV requirements document, I do think it should be publishable, but we don't have to publish it. If we don't publish it, and somewhere in the published text, the protocol document, we should clearly have some text stating why we're doing V5. I think somebody at the ISG during telechat will ask why couldn't it have been done by other means. So we don't need a lot of text, but we just need some. We just have to be sure that there is some concise explanation for why we're doing a whole revision instead of some kind of extension.
Okay, we need to be sure we get that to the authors in particular.
Let me also be clear, I have not checked to see if that text already exists, so it might already exist.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, and especially the V5, both of these two documents, there's a lot of opportunity for somebody who wants to contribute text and get an acknowledgement in the document. So I would like to see some more help for the authors in getting that kind of material out there. Okay. Next on the agenda was NTP over PTP, which I've already discussed the status of. I think we came up with a good way forward with the 1588 group, and I'll talk a little bit more about 1588 in a few minutes and where this might have some additional relevancy going forward. Any questions on NTP over PTP? Okay, so the next one is rough time, and Watson is here to give us an update on the rough time draft.
Yeah, so we have time for discussion later, but right now the update is we've updated a version. There's been a number of conversations, both on list and off list, and we've really been focused on cleaning out the remaining issues. My goal is to make sure that next IETF meeting we can put this on the other slide. And I think that's attainable.
Okay, you said next meeting we could, oh, you said put this on the other, oh, I see, now I understand what you were saying.
Yeah, get it to the state where we can have a working group last call and hopefully finish up before the next IETF with that.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. And just for clarity, we're talking about the protocol one and not the
yeah, the relevant parts of the ecosystem draft, we've gone back to having one draft. I think there just wasn't enough concrete implementation interest in the ecosystem.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Watson. All right, hold on one sec while I. So. So I'm going to give a quick report out from we had an informal 1588 NTP discussion. And as part of that, I'm also going to give a quick status of what 1588 is currently working on. I think in the next year or two, we're going to have a lot more opportunity or a lot more need for coordination between the two groups. We have a fair number of things that overlap at the moment. So first of all, there are a couple of 1580. So first of all, from a 1588 perspective, what are the things that the NTP working group might need to know about? There are some things that are ongoing at 1588 right now that I think are relevant here. The first one is 1588D, which was published this year. Well, it was published at the end of last year, technically, is the GDOI key management scheme for the authentication TLV that was added to the 1588 2019 version. So that is the current security material for 1588 is section 16.14 in the main specification, annex P in the main specification, and then this document. And where this is going to be relevant is we're also going to be talking about adding NTS as a second key management scheme for some domains for use with 1588. The second thing that's of interest is we have some ongoing discussions about the vulnerabilities of PTP, and a number of these were raised as part of the discussion in the NTP working group about the adoption of the NTS for PTP document. So for those of you who are following the mailing list, we put out a call for adoption for the NTS for PTP, and there were some concerns about us working on it because the feeling was that there was some underlying security vulnerabilities. And these were brought forth by some folks that had done some implementation work, both from the NTP and the PTP community. So the 1588 security working group is going back and looking at some of the underlying issues that were raised during the call for adoption in the NTP working group. When Martin comes up next, he'll talk a little bit about the NTS for PTP work, and then the actual format of what the security improvements in 1588, whether they will be clarifications of existing text or whether it will be further amendments, that hasn't been determined yet until that work gets to more maturity. And then the third thing that I think is of interest to the NTP working group is that there has been a new PAR approved. It's 1588.1. It's called Client Server PTP. And this is meant to be something that it looks a little bit more like NTP. It's a client server implementation of PTP, possibly for use in data centers and things like that. And that will be relevant to the document that Miroslav that we're putting forward on PTP, NTP over PTP. So those are the three things that are currently ongoing in 1588 that might be of interest. We did have an informal meeting last week, specifically to bring the two communities together. I sent an announcement on both lists indicating that it was not a formal meeting of either group, and that it would be, and that the results would be taken back to both groups. So we don't quite have the notes done yet, but we do have some discussion and some next steps for both individual groups to be working on. The documents that are relevant and of interest here are this, and these were linked in the original message where I sent out the meeting announcement for this meeting. We have the document in PTP, which is looking at the security flaws in the authentication TLV, and then we have the NTS document here. These are the reference documents. I just put them here for completeness that are driving a lot of this conversation. The security requirements RFC 7384 was developed by the TikTok working group almost 10 years ago now. That was used to drive the requirements for both NTS here and also for the authentication TLV and the security solution in PTP. So it was used in both places. And then RFC 8915 is the NTS that was published for NTP. And the hope is that, especially as client server PTP comes along and these things look alike, that there will be, we'll be able to have overlap between the solutions. So we'll see how that goes. And then obviously the underlying 1588 specifications are also relevant here. So the next steps are to report back to both the 1588 and the IETF NTP work groups. This is the report back for you all. We'll send some more detail. We'll send an email having some of these this information in it. And then also we're going to report back to 1588. The plenary for 1588 is later this week. And there is a desire to have a follow-up informal discussion sometime in September, I think it is, to see what progress has been made and what next steps are. And if we need to, we can establish a more formal liaison, but at this point, it's an informal discussion between the two groups. So there's a fair amount of moving parts, but I think there is also a fair amount of overlap. And so we're trying to keep the communication lines flowing effectively. With that, are there any questions about what has transpired?
Eric Klein again. No hats. Is there anything in 1588.1 that should be a consideration for NTP v5 that maybe we should reconsider?
Possibly, but the PAR was just approved, and so there is
Too early to say.
It's really too early to say. One of there's. Yeah, it's just really too early to say. I know that there's a couple of different possible ways forward so far. I know of three. One coming out of Meadow, one coming out of Meinberg, and one possibility is that NTP over PTP could be is a possible solution as well. But it's really they've had one initial meeting, and there's some design team work going on in the background, but there's no proposed drafts yet.
Okay.
There's a separate community, I think it's called a community group in IEEE that's being set up to look at use cases, but it's outside the scope of 1588. So it's and I don't know, I haven't seen the announcement for it yet. I just heard that it got approved. So.
Well, seems like would have been nice if there could be a way to collaborate or come together on something perhaps, but
yeah,
fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was May of this year that the PAR was approved, and we had a meeting in June, I believe. I don't remember the exact date, but. All right. So the next thing on our agenda is NTS for PTP. Martin?
Yeah, hello Kevin, and hello everyone. At first I want to say I'm pretty happy and relieved that the adoption process of NTS for PTP was successful. So no, it's an official working group document, even if there were some concerns because of the PTP security flaws and the potential conflict with NTS for PTP. I'm pretty sure this is not a big deal, and we can work on both NTS for PTP and the discussion on the PTP security flaws simultaneously. Also, I guess the security flaws can be fixed pretty easily, at least at the technical side. Regarding the NTS draft document, since the last uploaded version, there are no further changes yet. Rainer Bernbach and I want to add a small paragraph at the document to give some information about the scope of NTS for PTP. So we want to point out what can be secured with NTS for PTP and what not. So for one of the discussion was, for example, the delay attacks. And of course, PTP is one-way time transfer, which means we cannot protect PTP against delay attacks with cryptographic measures, which means we need always some kind of redundancy or monitoring mechanisms to mitigate delay attacks. So this should be very clear at the beginning of the document. This is what we want to add. So this minor update will be published in about 2 or 3 weeks because Rainer is on vacation, as far as I know, and I have a surgery in 2 days. This is why we don't update the document in 1 or 2 days. So we upload it in 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe here's more question to you, Kevin. Is it okay to upload the document in 2 or 3 weeks, or is it necessary to push it as soon as possible because it's now finished in with the adoption call?
I think 2 to 3 weeks would be fine. I just don't want it to be 2 to 3 months. So it would
Yeah.
be. So yeah, I think you'll be fine doing it then.
Okay, perfect.
I also, I know Dieter and I talked about this earlier. We have finally set up a NTP GitHub repo for the NTP working group, and we're going to work with you to move that document over into our repo so that it can be referenced and owned by the Secretariat. So, but we'll handle that. We'll work with you on the administrative details when you go to submit the next version, okay?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, well, then maybe about the implementation. Currently, I work 2 days or 3 days per week on my implementation. It's about 60 or 70% finished. So the key management system is almost functional, not finished, but functional. So I guess I can run the first test in August or at least at September. And then we gain hopefully much more information. During the last few months, I made a lot of notes during the implementation, and I received many comments in the IETF mailing list from David, from Miroslav. Thanks for these comments, they are very important for me. I also gained a lot of information in the IEEE Security Subcommittee, and Rainer and I want to merge all this information to create a major update for the draft document in the beginning of the next year, so February at least or March. So we have to add some more sections in the document. For example, the replay mechanism in NTS for PTP is currently more a placeholder than a specification text, but we want to shorten the text. We knew the draft document is currently pretty large. This is the reason because PTP is very complex, but we see we can cut off some content or shorten some content to make it easier to read for first readers. So this is the current plan. So the next update in 2 weeks is a small update, a minor update, and then the next after this one should be a major update with much more content.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the current state.
All right. Thank you, Martin, for getting up or staying up to report to us on this. And are there any questions for Martin on the status of the NTS for PTP document? Okay. So that brings us to any other business. The first any other business item is hackathon projects in November. Like I said, we're definitely interested in NTP v5 project. So folks that are working on those protocol implementations, that would be helpful. Martin, you mentioned your NTS for PTP implementation. Do you think you'd be ready to corral a project on that in November as well?
Hard to say. I hope.
Okay.
I really hope.
All right. So we'll keep it in mind and consider that. And Watson, we've tried a few times on rough time. I think there's a separate rough time implementation group, but perhaps if you could give us an implementation status, or I don't know if it's worth doing a hackathon project for that or not.
I think the timing just doesn't work. If we haven't concluded a working group last call by then it would make sense to be a hackathon project if there's enough people showing up. But I'm hoping that we can get it to the point where we've concluded the last call by next meeting.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that later. Go ahead, Christopher.
Chris Patton. Sorry, I haven't spoken in a little while. We're working on updating our Go implementation. Yeah, and we're supporting draft 8 right now, and we'll support the latest draft simultaneously. So there will be a test server at least, and a little client.
Okay.
Not necessarily on the timeline of a hackathon, just something we plan to do.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, so that's the hackathon for the November meeting. The second item I had under any other business was any interim calls. We do seem to get a little bit more traction on interim calls. I think August is in particular a bad time for all of the people that are on vacation. So I was looking to schedule something in early to mid-September. And we'll get back to you on possible dates for that. Is there any questions or comments, suggestions, things to avoid date-wise? Okay. Excellent. And looking at Chris, looking at your comment in the Zulip Meet Echo chat, I'm assuming you'll announce that on the mailing list, right? That announce the
Yes.
how to get to the server. Thank you. Okay. So with that, if there's no other business, we have gotten to the end of our agenda. We have a fair number of things that we're working on. We're just, the time zones and everything have conspired to not work with this meeting very well. However, we strongly need people to start reviewing. We need some more reviews on these documents. And so if you are new to this working group, please take a look. And even if you're not new, there's been a fair amount of development on some of these documents, and it would be good to get another pass through them. Anything else people want to bring up at the mic? Okay, so with that, I will adjourn the NTP at IETF 120 meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe there are people that are anytime zone. NTP got gypped once.
I was going to try and turn that off. So.